Part one of today, Friday. Friday, we're going towards the sunset. On those, before the Sabbath, 21st of March. Rock and roll for the butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors. And, I gotta turn my head left and right before I cross the street, but always grateful, thankful. My rent's paid, the electricity bill's paid. Got for the coffee, gonna throw a little bit of something in the garbage there. And on the toes, encouraging all to work out, try and exercise. A little bit chillier than yesterday, slightly chillier, but we're gonna go towards the sunset, go about, and there's gonna be first part, rock and roll edition. Story for my anonymous friend who was my friend because of the money, and for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the truckers, the grocery store clerks, always for the warehouse workers, bus drivers, plumbers, electricians, and heading towards that beautiful sunset. I hope I catch a little bit because I left late because I had a lot of bit cleaning done and cleaned the floors, sweep the floors, did a lot of things. And you know how it is with your truly independent artist, athlete, philosopher. It's geopolitics, 24/7 geopolitics. Geopolitics still have and will be challenging. Dragon versus Trump, special Dragon versus Trump edition. Part one for today. Number for the 51st Legion. Let's get that North American fusion, but in the public-private partnership way, my way best, and have been able to continue to challenge Donald Trump to a boxing match ever since Donald Trump imposed tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel. Gotta give some salutations and always doing some drills, and you know how it is with yours truly is geopolitics 24/7. I am an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and interior, so I was gonna try to squeeze to go directly to get to the best way to get to the sunset. And again, marking, celebrating. 5 years since I survived COVID. Had COVID back in 2020 between February 7th and March 28th, 29th. I had COVID. It was like death, pestilence, and disease. It was like death, pestilence, and disease. It really was like death, pestilence, and disease. I know when I say that it was like death, pestilence, and disease is kind of like a hardcore death trash metal song of a rock and roll song, like an album or something like that, a title for a death metal trash song, death, pestilence, and disease. But that's how I felt, and I really thought it was going to be my last chapter, and I survived. So having survived COVID, I always, of course, try to keep to the best of my ability the protocols, the hygienic protocols that were implemented during COVID, and I got 3 vaccines. I said 3, it's enough for me, so triple vaxxed, that's it, that's all. Don't ask me to get more. I'm not going to get more than 3, but yeah, I'm going to cross the street, turn my head left and right. I guess 3 is enough. Put a little bit of glove on, and the other glove. Yeah, I know they're going to be mismatching, but hey, you got to work with what you're given, So if you want to auction gloves, but now the spring coming, but nonetheless, gonna auction these gloves for $1 million. Is auctioning the shoes, the underwear, the pants, and the backpack. The backpack, which is carrying the gloves, red. My favorite color, like the scarf and the shoes. And I got the red backpack, and of course, inside the red gloves, by which I am challenging Donald Trump and have been ever since 2018, when Donald Trump imposed tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel of 10% on aluminum and steel, the first imposition of tariffs, and now we got that 25%. So, I don't support Donald Trump. I'm a Democratic Republican, pro-labor, love universal, revolutionary, centrist, androgynous, pansexual. We get that 50-50. Was born in the United States 3 times, once as a woman and twice as a man. Served in the United States Armed Forces twice in 2 different wars, 156 years apart, and I got my total mobile defense theory, total total mobile defense theory, the TMDT, the total mobile defense theory, or the TMDTS, which I call for its implementation, and that's how we got to rock and roll it with that, with the TDMT, the total mobile defense theory, which Canada, United States joined with Operation Northern Scorpion, the formation of the 51 legions, or 63, maybe the 50 plus 1 or plus 13, because we got 13 provinces here for calling for a joint security service and defense force, and a joint common currency, and a joint common passport, and we got to get rid of that border. We got to get rid of the border, and focus internally for the Operation Northern Scorpion to implement it, and for security service and defense only, and to build on the Canadian-US border the North American Imperial People's Coliseum, the North American Imperial People's Coliseum, the North American People's Imperial Coliseum. We got to build the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, you know, on the Canadian-US border. On the Canadian-US border, the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, a mega structure, 11 times bigger than the arena where the Harbor Ball, aka Blackout Ball, was built, where the Harbor Ball, aka Blackout Ball, was built. The Harbor Ball, aka Blackout Ball, is one of my top 5 Super Bowls, which I love. And okay, we're gonna go to the side here. One of my favorite Super Bowls in top 5 is the Harbor Ball. So on the Canadian-US border, let's build the public-private partnership, the PPP, the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, where we could have sports in perpetuity. Sports in perpetuity, sports in perpetuity, sportus in perpetuitas, you know, to have in perpetuity sports and fitness activity. And the first inauguration, the event is going to be me fighting Donald Trump, Dragon versus Trump, and I'm carrying in the backpack. Thanks to my anonymous friend, who wasn't my friend because of the money, and if I make $1 million, $1 billion, I'm going to get 50% half credit, gifting me gloves, red, my favorite color, auctioning them for $1 million. And I've been training a lot, you know, ever since I got out of being depressed and suicidal. I crossed Canada in 2017 in August, went to BC, British Columbia, and then of course I came back, and then in September 2017 I went to Halifax by train, 25 hours and 44 minutes, and in August 2017 it took 3.5 days from Montreal, all the way from Montreal to Vancouver, BC, 3.5 days, you know, 3.5 days by bus. So that was a hell of a road, and that was a hell of an experience. And I recommend people work out, train, exercise as well, and mass finance. I have been able for the mass financing of citizens' fitness. Super important, you know, to get that super fitness. And traveled, and I established when I crossed Canada coast to coast. And before that date, you know, I was depressed and suicidal. I was depressed, suicidal, you know, and I crossed Canada coast to coast, and that event, crossing Canada coast to coast, made me establish a strong esprit de corps, a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians in the true north, strong and free, and my brothers and sisters in the USA as well, you know, because not just because I'm a mystic as well, to being an artist, athlete, philosopher, geopolitical theoretical analyst, and theorist who lived in the United States 3 times post 1776, but I believe in the North American Collective, and you know, there are my family, Quebecers, Canadians, North Americans, and all who come to join us here in the new world. We have a common destiny, and you know, I established that esprit de corps for solid and strong in 2017, and that event really changed my whole life. I was depressed, suicidal, and I think if I would have not done that, maybe I would have taken my life, because I was suicidal, you know. So it was a hard battle, you know. Living with being suicidal, it's no joke, you know. So I've been out of the closet, you know. I've been open on the market of the Rainbow Nation, across nations, the fellow LGBTQ community, LOVE, rap and sing and rock and roll and art, of course, for my fellow lesbians, homosexuals, and you know, bisexuals. I'm pansexual myself. I've been in the open for many years now, you know, more than 7, and and because if I go longer, 8, 9, 10, 11 years, then my memory has a blackouts of memory. It's like retrograde amnesia symptoms, but sometimes the memory comes back. It's just, I have a very good memory of what I did in the past more than 7 years, especially my work in geopolitics, and it's national security sensitive because I've written tens of thousands of pages, and I've actually predicted what's happening now. I got proof of work. I predicted what's happening now. In 2019, October, November 2019, I predicted that there will be an international conflagration and different parallels, of course, implementation and parallels. I predicted an international conflagration, aka World War III. And the main premise was, and it's important because it's part of my work as a geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist who has predicted in a general manner. So not every detail, but in a general plateau manner, I predicted what's happening now across the world. I predicted that due to the conflicts, we're not going to be able to those conflicts which are not fully resolved. Of course, there are several layers of analysis and deep, complex levels of detailed analysis in the world of geopolitics, as I do on a daily basis. But fundamentally, I had predicted that due to the fact that many nation states, regions, civilizations were not able to fully resolve their conflicts, which dated from the 20th century during the Cold War period, which lasted, let's be honest, it lasted more than 44 years. Officially, most agree, 2/3 of historians agree that the Cold War lasted 44 years and 9 months. So between March 1947 and of course December 1991, end of December 1991, December 1991, December 1991. So between March and December 1991. So that's what it is. A little bit of there's some sport there. The youth. I love to see the youth physically active, and all the seniors and all people physically active, getting some little physical activity, because it's my part of my trinity of special interests. We Aspies have special interest, aka obsessive interest, and it's geopolitics 24/7. 24/7 geopolitics, the study that geopolitics studies thereof, and of course sports and fitness. Dancing is my favorite sport. Dancing is my favorite sport. Dancing is my favorite sport. Dancing is my favorite sport and fitness activity, you know, and that's how I rock and roll with it. That's my trinity, and that's what I do basically for years and years and years with a sometimes seemingly rigid routine, but I can be very flexible. But of course, geopolitics, I can discuss so much detail and so much richness and so much intellectual depth to the analysis of geopolitics. But back to what I was saying, that in 2019, October, November, I had concluded that humanity is set again towards an international conflagration. So I created a workout training program system to go hand in hand with such a scenario as we have seen unfolding in the past more than 44 months now, 3.5 years, you know. So I had concluded that based on the parameter, one of the main fundamental motives was that I foresaw that due to the fact that many unresolved conflicts were not fully resolved from the Cold War period, from the 20th century, in between civilizations, nation states, and regions, that these conflicts are going to restart, re-intensify, and recommence. And that's what's happening in Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Palestine, and potentially on the horizon, of course, Taiwan and China. But as much as, of course, I can go in depth and analyze, I cannot fully, you know, make a discourse or whatever. If whatever that's really necessary to take a side in these matters as an independent geopolitical theoretical honest and theorist. I'm a Quebecer, Canadian, North American, so I'm not on the ground with, let's say, 300 men and women. 300 men and women to be on the ground to really assess a more in-depth, because fundamentally I'm a Quebecer, Canadian, North American, you know, so this is my home in this life and in a past life, and you know, here in Canada, and died 5 years ago in 2020 between February 7th and 28th, 29th of March 2020, whatever the case may be, and 2020, whatever the case may be, and 2020. So between that period of time, you know, I died, and that's why I'm being reborn. So in many ways I died in my underground lair. And I just remember a few years ago, more than 7, 8, 9, 10 maybe, I moved from a moldy place where there's a lot of black mold, white mold, like greenish red mold, and maybe that caused memory loss. Or I was also surprised attack. I have many scars on the face, on the body, on the, you know, androgynous little clit dick scar. It's on my genitalia, which sometimes itch and scratch, but I've been applying some cream, so it's been a little bit better with that. But yeah, I do have lots of scars and trauma, and here I am, you know, joyous, but still financially stressed. But I got some chocolate at home. I still got a little bit of hazelnut cream spread, so that's going to be my reward after I come back after midnight, because today I got to do 5 hours again. So 4 minimum, preferably 5, or even clock it in at 6, maximum 7, because I don't want to be back at 3 a.m. in the morning. I want to be back by midnight. I say by midnight, which is kind of like 5 hours of marching. And I don't know if I'm going to go to the mountain or not. Maybe I'm going to go tomorrow to the mountain and see how it goes with that, and see how we rock and roll, you know, one day at a time. And that's how I live it. That's how I rock and roll since I ever died of COVID, and carpe diem it every day, you know. And I could have said that several times, I guess. I credited my surviving COVID to the goddess GODDSS, and that's my will to build the forgotten goddess GODDSS temple. Of course, the construction workers, I'm gonna credit some good massages, kisses, feet washing, you know. More than that, blah 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 blah. On the table, you gotta put some of that action with it. On the table, you gotta put some of that action with it, eh? On the table, you gotta put some action with it. So that's how we gotta get doing with that, and that's how we gotta get doing to get done, you know. So it's something which I gotta do, and you gotta do, and we gotta do, and something which we gotta be mindful here, you know. And this new emergent collective, civilizational collective, and the beauty here of Quebec, Canada, United States, and my brothers and sisters. As much as I'm no Trump supporter, I have been and will continue to challenge Donald Trump to a boxing match. You know, I do believe in having advocated for a major part of different fundamental, basically public-private partnership and North American-centric. My trinity of theories: the IT citizen integration theory, the DRT debt fusion theory, and the DFT democratic fusion theory for the fusion here of the North through North strong and free Canada and the U.S. It makes sense, and makes sense better that we focus for security on the ports and the airports coast to coast, the ports and the airports coast to coast, the ports and the airports, the ports and the airports, the coast and the coast to coast, the ports and the airports, the ports and the airports coast to coast, you know, coast to coast, the ports and the airports. So that's what we gotta get doing with that, and that's why we gotta focus on the North American complex. Here we're a new emergent civilizational complex, and here we made what I call the great linguistic compromise to have the continuity of the maintenance of peace with the French language. The French language, the beauty here, myself included, part of the Québécois family, the greater Québécois family of 9 million people, Québécois, myself Québécois, Quebecer, and Canadian, North American. I got that Canada tatted up there. You can't see it because it's under the blue, but that's how I gotta do it. It's under the blue, but that's how I gotta get doing with that. So that's what it is with that. So being that I'm part of the Québécois nation and North American collective, and we made the great linguistic compromise. We made the great linguistic compromise here to have the maintenance and the continuity of peace. And of course with my brothers and sisters, blacks, black men, black women, 13.4% of the population. My brothers and sisters were black, you know, so we also made great compromise. We still have to fight some racism, some discrimination is still an ongoing. I put for my black brothers and sisters who are blacks, men and women, you know, first what I got most from the heavens, from the goddess, 718 trillions of kisses. So kisses, hugs, and money financially, I'm stressed, but you know, I will to sign, let's sign that executive order, Mr. President, for the rebuilding of the North American inner cities, aka the ghettos. Gotta rebuild the ghettos. We gotta rebuild the ghettos, you know. We gotta rebuild the ghettos. We gotta rebuilding the ghettos, you know. We gotta be rebuilding the ghettos of North America, you know. We have a lot of places that need to be rebuilt right here. And healing here, right here, you know, charity starts a home, I guess. Charity starts a home, and, you know, I say, pledge your allegiance to our family. Pledge your allegiance to our family. Pledge your allegiance to our family. And gotta salute the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the grocery store clerks, all involved in the production, distribution of food, and all those, of course, are involved in the production, distribution of food, and even the daycare workers, changing some of those diapers, the warehouse workers, the train conductors, the welders, the plumbers, the electricians, and those who laid those 3G, 4G, 5G IT workers, some customer service, some of those cooking some of that bacon in the fast food, flipping some burgers, some cheeseburgers, some pizzas, delivering the food, all those across the truckers industry coercing on this Friday. Please, strippers, give them a discount to the truckers if they're gonna make that pit stop. Give them a little bit of that discount. Give them a little bit of free lap dance or whatever for the truckers, you know, carrying the supply chains, and for the train conductors, the butchers, and the electricians, the plumbers, and all those, of course, involved in the production, distribution of food. And all those who are now involved in the distribution of food, and all those, of course, who get it on the go with that, and who get it on the production, distribution of food. And that's all we gotta get doing with that. That's what we gotta get doing with that for the XYZ, and that's what we gotta keep on the go, you know, keep on the go, and we gotta keep building on this, you know, because it's the North American civilizational complex. We are on a civilizational complex which is not divorced but is distinct from Western civilization. So we have the distinctions, but we're not totally divorced from Western civilization here in the North American collective. So it's best if we fuse on a certain levels, more integrated based on some of my protocols, such as the new 911 Dragon protocols for security service and citizen integration here. And we got to implement Operation Northern Scorpio, which is fundamentally tied in with my total mobile defense theory system. Total mobile defense theory system. Total mobile defense theory system. The T, total. M, mobile. D, defense. T, theory. The T, M, DT, the TMDT or the TMDTS. Sometimes 4-letter acronym, sometimes 5. It depends on the correlation on whatever the aspect is, because it's a theory, but it's also a system of defense. So it has a system and a theory, both underplay, which I'm not going to go into details because it's for matters of national security, for Canada, United States Collective, Canada, United States, Joint Canada, United States, you know. So that's what we got to do. So best, if we get rid of the border, if we integrate based on my Trinity of theories and via public-private partnership, and let's build the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, where me and Donald Trump were going to fight for the first boxing match on the Canadian-US border. Me and Donald Trump were going to fight for the Canadian-US border, build that massive structure 11 times, let it be bigger than the hardball ball, aka blackout ball, where the hardball ball and the blackout ball was built, where the hardball ball and the blackout ball was built. The blackout ball, aka hardball ball, that's where it was of course built. And the hardball ball, aka blackout ball, is one of my favorite Super Bowls of all time. One of my favorite Super Bowls of all time is the blackout ball, aka hardball ball. So I want to build that 11 times bigger than the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, that is, to be 11 times bigger than that. I gotta check where it was, which one it was, where was it played, that Super Bowl. Hardball ball, aka blackout ball, where for the first time they were in the history, it had never happened. It was the first and last. It was the first and last Super Bowl when two brothers were the head coaches. Were the head coaches of the Ravens. That's why the hardball ball comes after the surname. Also no blackout ball, because for almost 45 minutes, for like 44 minutes or something, it was like a blackout. So that was, several events happened for the first time in history of that Super Bowl. Two brothers were head coaches, opposing teams. One brother was the head coach of the Ravens, Baltimore Ravens, and one of my 49ers, because I'm a Niner. I got hundreds of videos relating to Niners and me candidated to be a Super Bowl performer, blah blah blah, dreams, you know. I guess we have some dreams sometimes. I guess sometimes I'm a dreamer, but that's it, that's all. Let's build on the Canadian-US border that massive structure Coliseum. Let's go NFL National Football League, NHL National Hockey League, NBA National Basketball Association, MLB. Let's build that massive structure where gonna have Sportis in Perpetuitas. We're gonna have Sportis in Perpetuitas. And when we have sports in perpetuity, Sportis in perpetuities, meaning we're going to have 24-hour sports and fitness, and do my general integrated total body training system, which I've created back in 2019, which is a simple, effective workout training program system, which requires no equipment, and which has several dynamics and layers. It is has a deep, complex science behind its simplicity, because it has simple rules, like 4 or 5 rules. One is allocated 93 minutes and 44 seconds, almost 45 seconds. So 93 minutes and 44 seconds and 9/11ths of a second. To do 100 push-ups, 100 squats, 100 hawks, one can do 13 maximum repetitions per set, minimum 3 or anywhere in between. And of course, doing that, and you gotta, once you start the countdown, you gotta march, jog, march, a minimum of 30 seconds in between sets. So either march or jog or run in between sets. Either march or jog or run. Either march or jog or run in between sets. March or jog or run in between sets. Those are the rules. And you're gonna turn my head left and right. So those are the rules, and that's the workout. So that building is gonna be, let's build it 11 times via PPP, public-private partnership. And to the construction workers, the 4 buildings that I'm asking to construct, I'm not gonna just put blah blah. I will to put feet washings, massages, kisses, feet washings, massages, kisses, and tickles, massages, feet washings. And to build the Forgotten Goddess Temple, I created me surviving, being depressed, suicidal, surprise attack, and having COVID, survived COVID 5 years ago, celebrating today. And here I came to cross the bridge to take a look at the beauty here of the sunset. There's always a sunset and a sunrise. I guess there's always a sunset and a sunrise. There's always a sunrise and a sunset. So I'm just gonna do a little bit heavy second there's a sunset and a sunrise every second. Sometimes we're not fully conscious, but every second there's a sunrise and a sunset. So I gotta give some LOV rock and roll to the builders, public workers who built this bridge. Bring me some paint and I'll volunteer to paint some of that color. Let's put that blue, red, and white. Red, white, and blue, how you say? Quebec, Canada, US joint, let's say North American Collective. So back to what I was saying again, to build the four. The pyramid, scarlet, crimson, and scarlet are shades of red, my favorite color. Build the house of the dragon pyramid, and to also build the fourth one, the Rainbow People's Palace, for my fellow LGBTQ Rainbow Nation, my fellow LGBTQ community. So those four buildings, but the forgotten goddess, hold dearly goddess GODDSS, that temple to build, and the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, to build it, and of course to be 11 times bigger than the stadium where the Harbor Bowl, aka Blackout Bowl, was played, where for the first and only time, because it never happened before and it has never happened since, that two brothers faced each other as different head coaches respectively. One brother was the head coach of the Ravens, which won by only 3 points, and my 49ers. So now that I'm on the topic, please, NFL National Football League, NHL National Hockey League, NBA National Basketball Association, MLB, please reduce the cost of the tickets by 44.9%. That is what I'm asking for, the reduction of the tickets by 44.9%. 44.9% is the estimated need be, the cost to be reduced for the tickets, so that we have a certain level of parity, being a certain level of parity within the cost of living, and whatever the case may be for the cost of living, which has been skyrocketing all the past during COVID. And we're gonna go all the way to the railroad and back, and to see there and back, and then we're gonna head back, and that's gonna be for the part one for today. We're gonna discuss a little bit of my DRT, and then we're gonna maybe go to the mountain, see how we're gonna zigzag it, or see how we're gonna do it with the play. And that's how it is now. So always encouraging all to work out, train, exercise, and working out, train, exercising has been, is, and will continue to be my medicine and therapy of choice. So it's always something which is fun to do, and something to equate, in the possibilities and the realms of the possibilities of which we are here and now, and enjoying a little bit of that marching here, and turning a little bit on the left and the right, and here I just want to go, and that's what it is with that. So again, encouraging all to work out, train, exercise, and working out, train, exercise has been, is, my medicine and therapy of choice. And now we're just gonna go all the way, and then we're gonna turn back to the side, collective up, and that's gonna be that drill. So encouraging all the workout, train, exercise, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, firefighters, all those involved in the production and the distribution of food. Gotta send some LOVE, gotta send some love their way, gotta send some of that good loving on that side. To the grocery store clerks, to the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, and the doctors, the firefighters, and LOV to the firefighters of the North American Collective. Let's get that North American Collective Workers Party, the North American Collective Workers Party, the North American Collective Workers Party, NACWP, NACWP. Let's get it rolling, NACWP. The North American Collective Workers Party, for the fusion of the North. Through North Strong and Free is not enough. You gotta add some LOVE, some loving. Just like my brothers and sisters in the South. Gotta add some of that to the home of the brave, in the land of the free, and the home of the brave. Where I roamed as a woman in a past life, and twice as a man in two different wars, which were 156 years apart. I served in the same United States Armed Forces. And of course, that's what we're gonna get doing on the drills. And that's what we're gonna get doing on that drill now, blah, blah. So we're gonna get on the collective, and so we're gonna get doing, So it's something which we gotta be, and something which we gotta be meditating on. But nonetheless, God said that gotta get that LOV, because it's just strength and freedom, and bravery is not enough. Gotta have some loving, some kindness, some compassion. Please me and his being his. And I've been complaining for years now that I don't have a massage therapy session, I don't have a massage therapy session, I don't have a massage therapy session. So that's what it is with that. And I don't have a massage therapy session, but you know what? Finance the firefighters. Finance the firefighters of North America, those who pick up the garbage, the compost, the garbage, the recycling, those three services, you know, part of the public-private partnership. The public-private takes a private as well, and the public, those who pick up the garbage, the compost, the recycling, and of course the garbage, the recycling, the compost, and the firefighters. You know, they deserve and earn. Credit them a massage therapy session and finance them. Millionaires and billionaires of both Canada and United States. Let's go on that ASAP Wall Street. Finance the firefighters and massage therapy sessions, and nurses in the public, and doctors in the public with it, because they deserve it and earn it more than yours truly. I'm just gonna take a bath tomorrow. A bath, gonna bathe, BATH, you know. Take that long LONG bath for an hour, and that's gonna be my substitution for a massage therapy, which I cannot afford at this moment in time. And blah blah blah. Anybody willingly loving, blah blah blah. Pledge your allegiance, friends with benefits only. Pledge your allegiance to our family. Pledge your allegiance to our family, friends with benefits only. Let's get those legions of the Dragon Army, mobilize 1% of both the Canadian and United States population, and form a new institution for defense, security, and service, which only gonna have that purpose in perpetuities for the North American Collective, in perpetuities. Security, service, and defense, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. Security, service, and defense, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. Security, service, and defense, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. To have that in perpetuities. 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 You know, so that's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta get doing with that, you know. So, and the construction workers here gonna need to rebuild the North American Collective, and here people got some gardening. I did some urban gardening a few seasons, and yes, once during COVID even, and a few times before COVID, I had planted my own tomatoes and lettuce and garlic and some other, like parsley and onions, and maybe something else. I don't know exactly what it was, something else. And I harvested and I ate with my anonymous friends. So I got some experience in urban farming. I mean, this is the same principles, but just small lots. It's still the black fertile earth and the water, and the know how to leave a distance for the roots to grow, and the nutrients and the elements in the black fertile earth, and with the golden sun rays and the water. It takes these elements to work together. The science and magic and science of this mystery of mysteries of producing the food which we eat. Thank you, farmers, LOV, butchers, bakers, nurses, truckers, grocery store clerks, all involved in the production and the distribution of food. Gotta send some of that love, you know. Gotta send some of that love their way. Gotta send some of that love that way, you know. So that's what we're gonna do now. And always thinking about the firefighters, the butchers, the railway conductors across the North American Collective. And I just was curious to see if I'm gonna be able to see a little bit of the sunset where the railroads are, and see this transmission for the electricity. Gotta give a shout out, some LOV, to those in the workers of the past in the 20th century who built all these transmission lines, built all the transmission lines, and they built it, and that's where they're gonna build all this. Imagine, civilization is a privilege. To have the electricity, the radio, the TV, the science, the mathematics, the radius, the diameter, the radius, the diameter, the volume, the transmission, the science, the physics. All this is a privilege, and in a parallel life, after midnight, I usually transmute until Monday morning with my parallel self, where I'm still an Aspi. I still have Asperger's, being neurodivergent, but there my special interest is science, technology, mathematics, physics, logic, everything to do with science and technology, physics and mathematics. And I build supercomputers, microchips, ICBM rockets, antennas, and satellites. So that's what I do. As in this life, I do, geopolitical analysis and theorizing, and sports and fitness and dancing and rock and roll, always for the farmers on the gold sunset and the sunrise. Thelema celebration. Marking 5 years, celebrating 5 years since I survived COVID. I had it in 2020, right up the beginning, first wave I got hit hard between February 7th, 2020 and March, between February 7th and March, February 7th and March 2020. So when I had COVID right at the beginning, it was like death, sentence, and disease. I really thought I was gonna die. I'm just gonna take a second to salute the sun and watch a little bit of that rock and roll. So I really thought I was gonna die. In many ways, I did die during COVID. Nothing that I will to be going back, but I am being reborn, and I live carpe diem every day, carpe diem. But I have hope for tomorrow when I see people, working out, training, exercising, and I hear things of goodness and kindness, and see people holding hands and kissing and loving. That always gives me some of that hope. HOP, some of that hope. HOP, some of that hope, because the North American Collective now, the sun on the other side, on the west coast of Canada, United States, the North American west coast, north and south, because Canada is north, and my brothers and sisters in the USA is south. So on the other coast, now the sun is like 4 o'clock, if it's 7 here, like 7:18 or whatever, 7:44 maybe. PM. That means that on the other side is like 4. You got to subtract 3 hours. So it's something which we got to be meditating on. Always meditating on the fact that we got time zones. So that's what it is with that. And here I just wanted to say some salutations with some my Akadua sun salutations a little bit. Give me some seconds, Amir, and gonna be on our way. I just wanted to do some of the sun salutations. Won't be long. I'll do my rituals to my Pope. Do some rituals to my Pope, the King, the Sun. Do some rituals to my Pope, the King, the Sun. Sunrise and sunset at midday. Midnight at 12 o'clock, 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. and sunset and sunrise. So 4 times, sometimes every hour, but 4 times minimum a day. So there's a raw berry meal, Papa Crowley, Thelemites, blah blah. There we go. Red in rising, red in setting. Now we're gonna time to go back to the headquarters. Just gonna sing some rock and roll to pay my last salutations to the sun. Red in rising, red in setting. The kingdom and the empire of the sun still stands as the empires and the kingdoms of men have risen and fallen as the pyramids remain. Goddess, birth the sun. Gotta get the stars the one. And you know that I'm singing up above and I'm singing up a blue sky. Bury me with Papa Crowley. 1/3 of me up in New Jersey. 1/3 of me up in the mountain, Mount Royal, the Belvedere, Conjurenac. 1/3 of me sent to the city of the pyramids. That's what I said. 93. Adrian Hanna Dragon. There we go. So we got to rock and roll with that, and now I'm going to discuss, of course, a little bit of the death refusion theory as I get a little bit of my, I guess my weird spirituality, want to be Thelemite. I have more questions than answers, so many things I don't know, but with an Aspie, being an Asperger, having Asperger's, I certainly build a struggle to build bridges and maintain friendships or employment, because Asperger's is a neurological mental divergent condition which makes me predisposed to certain, as many Aspies in general, to special interests and weird social, we're less able in the social sphere, eh? Aspies, for example, we don't know in the personal space. We tend to breach personal space, and we tend to approach fellow citizens when discussing, conversing, close to like 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches to the face or to the body, so people can get intimidated and mistake Asperger's for a mental illness, which Asperger's is not a mental illness. It is just because our brains are different, so we're neurodivergent, and I'm part of a tiny fraction of small minority of a community, right? Because it's less than 1%, less than 1%, less than 0.5%, less than 0.44%, less than 0.44%, less than 0.44%. So less than half of a percentile. So not a lot. Very few people have Asperger's. And I'm one of those who has it. And I got to live with it. And it's always building bridges. And sometimes it requires a lot of energy and force and intent and to manage my characteristics. Because it's not, they're not symptoms. Asperger's, symptoms are to describe an illness, a malady. But Asperger's, it's not a malady and it's not an illness. Definitely not a mental illness. It's just neurodivergence, and our brains are made different. So we see the world differently, and we're different. We're just different, and certain things we got to be told straight, and certain things we don't fully understand, or we might take literally some things too literal, and we might have more impediments, but we can excel in a lot of aspects, especially those special interests, like in geopolitics. And again, that's my kingdom, my realm. I can hold account, discuss for hours, for hours and hours and hours. I spend hours analyzing and dissecting geopolitical theoretical analysts and theorists here who analyzes geopolitical events on the daily, because they occur daily. It's 24/7. New events, new dictums from the politicians, from the diplomats, and new alliances being formed, reformed, and there's always geopolitical events on the daily basis, hourly basis even, because they have a lot of different countries in the world. So now I got to discuss my DRT theory, the DRT, debt refusion theory, before everything again comes out of the curse of Asperger's. It's super important that I do discuss the DRT theory. So the debt refusion theory stands for D, debt, R, refusion, T theory, and I have been and will continue to make the statement that it is the only solution in the terms of where we are now, with the financial situation now, as of today, in 2025. So last year we paid 46.5 billion interest on the public debt. These numbers you can verify yourself with Tiff Macklin, and my auntie Christia Freeland left the Minister of Finance, but nonetheless these are numbers which can be verified and can be verified. You can verify these numbers for yourself. So in 2020-2021, the number was 20.3 billion. So what do you notice? That it more than doubled the number in billions. And again, 1 billion is 1,000 million. A billion has 9 zeros. That's why there's the problematic. And on the horizon, we have a possibility of a black swan event. There's a possibility of a black swan event. There's a possibility of a black swan event on the horizon. On the horizon, there's a possibility for a black swan event, due to the amount of interest which we now pay on the public debt, which we now pay on the public debt. So that's what it is, on the public debt. So that's the amount which we pay on the public debt. So that's what we gotta get doing with that. So that is the amount which we paid on the public debt. That is a staggering amount which we paid on the public debt. 46,000 million. Just interest. So imagine, consequently, just as an individual citizen, let's say citizen X or citizen Y, citizen Z, if I don't have credit cards myself, but you saw yesterday I showed I'm pretty transparent with my financial struggles. I'm financially stressed and kind of broke at the moment, but grateful, thankful. My rent's paid my electricity bill, got food and coffee, and got some good hazelnut spread, which I love. And I guess that's always something good for me, to have some sweets, and gives me some joy after my workouts, my long workouts of more than 5 hours, 6 hours, and sometimes 7 hours marching non-stop and meditating and whatever have you, like more than the generals of NATO march every day, more than any general of NATO. Anyways, the DRT, debt refusion theory, and again, just parallel to give the mathematical financial principia, is that an individual whose interest payments double in such a short amount of time, right? Because it doubled in 3 years. And yes, due to COVID made us implement those special protocols and programs to sustain the population, right? Yes, due to COVID. But an individual citizen who's, let's say, paid 156, double 156 is 312. So let's say it jumps in 3 years from an individual citizen's interest payments on the credit cards, he, she, they, whatever the case may be. If it goes from 156 to 333, without the salary double, because the GDP of Canada has not doubled, and the average salary have only increased by 4.4% in 5 years. From 2020 to 2025 this year, an average increase in salary has been 4.4%. 4.4%. So that's where the problem lies. If you understand where the problem lies, is that the interest payments have, of course, if on the private debt and the public debt is the same financial principle. So the fact is that if a citizen's interest payments more than double in 3 years, one has to reduce the spending. I would have to cut, you would have to reduce Netflix, going out to the movies, buying less, whatever, cigarettes, stop smoking cigarettes, reduce this phone, let's say from if you pay $44.40 or $40.44, you have to reduce to what I pay, $25.44, $25.44, $25. You have to reduce, you have to cut in the budget, you have to maybe don't order out, don't go out to the movies anymore, don't go out to the restaurant anymore. So one has to reduce the expenses, the expenditures have to be reduced. One has to reduce the spending. The spending have to be reduced. That's just the way it is, you know. That's just the way it is. There's no other way around it. There's just no other way around it. There's no other way that one can of course get out of this. Get out of this. A citizen it applies with whatever the case may be. It applies with the individual as well. With the collective and the national, the public and the private. The same mathematical financial principle. So basically, in other words, what are we going to cut in the public? The police, the prisons, the prisons. The healthcare, the public healthcare, the RCMP. I served in a past life a little bit in the RCMP before they were named the RCMP, by the way. But anyways, it has to reduce. It's not sustainable because the GDP did not double. It takes decades for the GDP of Canada, for the economy of Canada to double. Decades and decades and decades. Right? Just like an individual has to reduce. What are we gonna cut? The sanitation workers who pick up the garbage, the recycling. So there's no way out of this but my DRT theory or something very similar. LOV to the train conductor. See how my brain works? Now I see this train, I know that it's going east. There's east. The train's going east. Now it's a passenger train. So many other things, information I don't know. The volume, what year was built, how much kilowatts of electricity and other that it consumes, and everything that is comprised of. I don't have that engineering knowledge, but I put it into context of geopolitics because that's what I know. So now I imagined scenarios for potential sabotage and espionage. Espionage or sabotage, because we're open to potential sabotage and espionage from outside the collective North American civilization, the collective North American civilizational complex, because we made powerful enemies, which are nuclear armed and have capabilities, of course, to do us some harm in both Canada and the United States, because we took some positions where we have provided arms, munitions and weaponry, to certain countries and nation states, and we have become militarily involved, not just by humanitarian aid or financial aid. In other words, militarily we got involved. So back to the DRT. Again, there's no other way around it. But my DRT theory, because again, we're going to have to reduce the spending. There's no way out of that where we are now. Again, due to that fact that we paid so much interest which we pay on the public debt. That's how we gotta get doing, you know. So the DRT, debt refusion tea, that's how we gotta get doing, you know. So that's what we gotta get doing with that, you know. So we're gonna get doing on that, and that's what we're gonna have to be doing, the implementing it. There's, again, you can argue all you want, but the numbers, the mathematical financial principle, it's an emergency. There's no other way, you know. There's just no other way around it. You can argue all you want, but that's how it is, you know. So that's just how we gotta get that dictum going, because there's no way around. The solution is my DRT theory, or what, something very similar to the DRT theory, to the debt refusion theory. The only solution resembles my theory. So I'm gonna now explain it as much as I can. So the explanation is that, of course, due to the fact that we pay so much interest that it has more than doubled to 46.5 billion. That is the amount of interest which we paid only on the public debt. So the number has more than doubled. In 2020-2021 fiscal year, it was 20.3 billion. So from 20.3 to 46.5, that's whatever the case may be. So that is just the amount of money, which is a staggering amount, because a billion has 9 zeros. So that's 46,000 million. 46,000 million. You realize that a billion has 9 zeros. Right? So mathematically, just the number is, but of course, it's at the macro level, right? At the macro. But the fact that it has more than doubled in such a short amount of time, that's where the crisis lies. That's where the problem lies. So I'm gonna explain now the solution, the DRT. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt, my 10,000, your 10,000, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, all the public and the private debt, we're going to convert it into US dollars. We're going to convert it into US dollars, right? All that money, we're going to convert it into US dollars, and implementing my DRT theory best, Canada and United States join simultaneously, because the United States is in a parallel financial situation on both the public and the private, Most of Canada and United States is in a very similar financial situation. So all the debt, public and private, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, we're going to convert it, we're going to have to do the conversion into US dollars. We're going to add it with the US public and private debt, both the public and the private debt. All that number is going to be in the trillions. Plus the money circulation, we're going to create a new central bank, because in my DRT theory, integrated in my debt refusion theory, is integrated monetary integration theory, which is the financial theory which was implemented in the European Union, in the 90s. The Europeans, they destroyed the national central banks, and the Germans destroyed their national central banks. And of course, they created another central bank. They created a new common central bank for multi-nation states. Many nation states now have the ECB, the European Central Bank. The European Central Bank serves as a common central bank for many nations, many states. So that's what we're going to get doing with that, and that's what we're going to get on the go. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to do that conversion, So that's what it is, and that's what we're going to get doing with that. So it's something which we're going to have to do. So we're going to convert all the public and the private debt. We're going to convert it into US dollars. So that money is going to be the initial money supply. The initial money supply for a new central bank, for a new central bank. So all the money, all the public and the private debt, is going to be the initial money supply for a new central bank. Whatever we call it, the name is not that important as the principle. And we're going to issue a new currency. So all the public private debt converted to US dollars is going to be the initial money supply. A new currency we're going to call the UE. U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. The universal exchange unit, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. The universal exchange unit. The UE. U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. Such a beautiful blue, sunset blue. So all the debt, public and private, that's going to be the initial money supply. right? So with that money, we're going to rebuild the infrastructure of North America, rebuild the infrastructure, construct 44 tunnels, construct 44 tunnels in case of a thermonuclear war, 44 number after 43 before 45, across Canada, United States, both joint, inspired by the Cheyenne Mountain Complex and the Montreal Underground Village, and stack it with food, cans, and of course food which can sustain, and food which can have a shelf life of 3.5 years, 5 years, 7 years, 11 years, more than 44 years, whatever the case may be. In case of a thermonuclear war, we need to get those 44 tunnels started building ASAP and implement my North American Criminal Rehabilitation Act and put some of those, my brothers and sisters who for XYZ reasons lost the liberty and lost the freedom. Lost the liberty and lost the freedom, lost the liberty and lost the freedom, of course. Lost the liberty and lost the freedom. And put them, of course, to get a little bit of that work. A little bit of that work to build the 44 tunnels, to build those 44 tunnels, to build 44 tunnels across the North American Civilizational Complex. To build those 44 tunnels. So that's what we're going to be doing, building those 44 tunnels. Mass financing citizens' fitness, because it is great for the mental health and body. Mass finance citizens' tourism, Canada, United States joint. And of course, tourism does great. It did great wonders for me when I crossed Canada coast to coast. I established a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians, and it got me out of being depressed and suicidal. And I had a revelation when I crossed Canada coast to coast. I said, it's such a great country we have, and met countless people on the way, diverse people, and wow, that changed my whole life. That would change my whole life. So whatever the case may be with that, and that's what we're gonna get doing. So it's something which we gotta get doing. So we're gonna take all the public-private debt, we're gonna convert it to US dollar, we're gonna create the U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit, the U. We're gonna set an interest rate level of 10%. 10%. It could be less than 10%. It could be 6.1, 9.3, 7.18, 3.3. 33, 1.56, whatever the case may be. But by principle is going to be that. So that is going to be the principle by which we're going to operate. The principle of 10% maximum, 10% maximum, 10% maximum. 10% max by after we implement the DRT. So it's not going to be able to be higher than 10%. That's going to be the new financial system, the new financial principle of interest. 10% max on all loans. Now like we have today, 13, 14, 16, and 22.44, 25.44, 26 and more. Or the case may be, you know. Like I pay, I showed on the other time on the video, you see that I pay 10.44. That I pay 10.44, that I pay 10.44. 10.44. So due to the fact that that's what I pay, 10.44, that's what we're gonna have to do to implement that. So that's what we're gonna get to do that implementation, to do that. So the DRT for the creation of the UE, the Universal Exchange, we're going to convert, of course, all the public and the private debt. We're going to convert it, and that's all we're going to do. We're going to, of course, implement the DRT, debt fusion theory, and we're going to create, of course, the UE, the Universal Exchange. In it, we're going to build more dams, hydroelectric dams here, mass finance citizens' fitness, mass finance tourism, and rebuilding the infrastructure, the bridges, the sewers, the bridges and the sewers. The sewers need to be rebuilt. The roads, the infrastructure of the North American Collectif, we're going to mass rebuild the projects. We're going to build more hydroelectric dams, and we're going to do a census, a great North American census to see everybody who's been living here since 2020, 2017, everybody who's been living here since 2020, 2017, everybody who's been living here since 2020, 2017. Since 2020 or 2017, and create a common passport. So that's what we're gonna be doing, you know, implement the DRT, debt fusion theory for the creation of the UE, and of course mass finance fitness, mass finance the rebuilding of the bridges. Lots of good we're gonna be able to do by the implementation of my aforementioned theory, like I said. So we gotta get to work. We gotta get a lot of work done. So it's always work. Arbeit, the debt fusion theory for the creation of the Universal Exchange Unit best. And pledge your allegiance to our family is the song. Pledge your allegiance to our family. Pledge your allegiance to our family. Friends with benefits only. Rock and roll for the firefighters, truckers, butchers, nurses, doctors, and grocery store clerks and all those involved in the production, distribution of food, and that's what we're gonna get doing with that. And always gonna get some of that love, you know, for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the grocery store clerks, the firefighters, and the DRT Debt Fusion TV. And those who put up those 3G towers, 4G, 3G, 4G, 4G, 3G, 3G. Don't leave the bottles there. Recycle, that's 10 cents or 20 cents, and maybe get a little bit of that putting in the recycling, you know, because there's children, you know. Maybe I should do it. There's children gonna touch and break it, you know. Let's put it in the recycling and see bottles go there. It's gonna go bottles and cans, so we're gonna put it there because there's children, there's youth, you know. Youth might come to get candy here from the dépanneur, and sometimes they come get candy dépanneur, and they sit there, and I'm gonna have to disinfect my hand, of course. But sometimes they're youth and they might sit on it by mistake, you know. Cut it and break it, sit on it by mistake and do that mistake. So it's something which you gotta put it in the recycling, see? Recycle it, and I don't know who drank it, so now I'm gonna disinfect at the corner there. I'm gonna go disinfect my hands, and that's gonna be for one here because I touched it with only the right hand. So there's bacteria, germs, microbes. There's bacteria, germs, and microbes. Still like the COVID protocols. And I have carrying my open carry my disinfectant with me, yours truly, you know. I always carry my disinfectant, so time to put it to work now, because you never know. And it's Friday, so the youth might get their sweets and their candy there and play, or that's why you don't leave that there. I don't mind people drinking, whatever. It's not a crime, but mindful, you know. You gotta be mindful. Hand sanitizer, bacteria. It's cold. Let's go, 20 seconds. There you go. Whew, that was cold, but it's effective, you know. Hand sanitizer, really effective, and that's what we're gonna go doing with that. And I guess it's night, so maybe let my main out also. And that's it. We're gonna go rock and roll it. We're gonna drill it and go to my bank and do a little bit of that rock and roll, you know. So there we go. Put it in and put the backpack. I had to get rid of some of my own trash as well, so turn my head left and right. Here we got the pedestrian. Anyways, the DRT Debt Fusion TV for the creation of the UE Best. We have to start implementing it ASAP, as soon as possible. You know, it's an emergency, really. It's point of being an emergency where we are now, you know, with the current financial situation and everything that's been going on with the public and the private debt. Gonna have to be implementing it right now, and that's what we're gonna have to be doing, you know, do the implementation of the DRT, and that's what we're gonna get doing with that, you know. So